All right. Welcome, everybody. Um, Thank you for joining our SolarShare's 2025 annual general meeting. My name's Chris Caners. I'm the general manager of SolarShare. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it and appreciate your membership in SolarShare. Before we get started, I wanted to acknowledge the land on which SolarShare operates is unceded and unsurrendered Indigenous land. The ancestral, traditional, and contemporary caretakers of these lands are the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, Chippewa, and other Anishinaabe peoples, the Haudenosaunee, the Wendat, and the Cree. We respect and acknowledge existing understandings exemplified by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Haudenosaunee Confederacy and the Anishinaabe to peacefully share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. We encourage your participation in our AGM. You can find the materials for the AGM at the link shown there on the screen, including the 2024 draft minutes, the 2024 audited financial statements, and the program for this event. If you want to ask a question, then you can do that in a number of different ways. You can raise your hand via your electronic hand, and we will unmute you and you can ask your question. You can also use the Q&A function to ask questions, and we'll do our best to respond to those, of course. And if you have a general comment, you can put that into the chat, and we'll do our best to answer those comments as well. Please note, only members can vote. We'll be using the Zoom polling function for voting. So I am told by my friends Brian and Bob that we do have quorum. So I'd like to call this meeting to order. I'm Chris Caners. I'm the presiding officer. The board has asked me to act as the presiding officer. This meeting is being recorded, so we will share that recording after this AGM, and we're also taking minutes. The first order of business is to approve the 2024 AGM minutes. And just keep in mind, only those members present at the 2024 annual general meeting are eligible to vote. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the 2024 AGM minutes. Doug, would you be able to make that motion?
I'd like to move that, please.
And Graysanne, could you second the motion?
I second that motion.
Wonderful. Any discussion before we go into the poll? And Brian or Bob, tell me if I'm missing something, please. Of course. Okay, I don't see anything. We'll launch that poll. I'll give you a couple of moments to complete that voting. Great. Okay, I'll end the poll. There we go. And so that motion carries. Okay, so here today, after we hear from me, we'll hear from our president, Mike, and then we'll hear from Ashley Reed, the chair of our audit committee, about the audited financials. And then followed by our finance committee report with Doug. One note on Ashley, if Ashley's been having connectivity issues, so I may ask Ron Seftel to step in to deliver that report, should that be required. We'll follow that with the election of directors to the board, and then followed by the new business report with Patrick and the sales and marketing report with Peter. As we mentioned, we encourage comments and questions throughout this AGM. We will have time at the end as well for more comments and questions with the board of directors. So if we don't get to your question during the AGM itself, then we'll try our best to answer that at the end. Oops, sorry about that. Thanks for that note. That's not helpful, is it? To have a Zoom page covering the Zoom. There we go. Is that better? Thank you. So I wanted to, of course, thank our board of directors who are all volunteer and put a lot of effort and time into making SolarShare what it is. So I really want to extend a thank you to these folks who dedicate their time and energy to the success of our cooperative. I also want to mention too, in addition, our board members, in addition to their work on the board, our board members also contribute to a number of committees. And in addition to those board members, we have a number of committee members who volunteer their time to support the work of the board and of SolarShare. One way you can get involved with SolarShare is by becoming a member of a committee, and that'll give you some exposure to SolarShare and the inner workings, and it's a good way of getting involved and then also potentially joining the board. If you want to learn more about that, you can check out that link there, or email myself or Brian, and we'll be happy to talk to you about it. Also, of course, our staff are very instrumental in making sure that SolarShare runs smoothly. In particular, Bob Ross, who leads our operations and maintenance team of a number of technicians in the field who keep our projects operating smoothly, and without which we wouldn't be able to do the work that SolarShare does. I also want to give a special welcome to Brian Chang, who joined us as the sales, events, and marketing coordinator. A number of you may have spoken with Brian already regarding your bonds. I also want to pay tribute to Tapestry Community Capital and the Toronto Renewable Energy Cooperative. Both organizations really support the work of SolarShare and are doing great work outside of SolarShare as well. But we're very well supported by those two organizations as well. Before we get to Mike, I do want to celebrate Ashley Reed, one of our directors who's been with us for 6 years. Ashley has made significant contributions to SolarShare, in particular through the audit committee, through her work as the chair of the audit committee. We're sad to see Ashley go from the board, but we can totally appreciate that she has a young family at home and is thriving accounting practice to attend to. So while we're sad to see Ashley go, we're also very thrilled that she's been able to spend this time with us. I'm also excited that Ashley will be able to stick with us for a little while longer on the audit committee, if not on the board. So we want to say a heartfelt thank you to Ashley for her contributions to SolarShare and the board. So without further ado, Mike, for the president's report.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, slide. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight. I'm going to try to give you a little bit of insight into sort of what goes on in the background of SolarShare, which is very important, and we put a lot of time and effort into to try to get achieve the financial results that we have targeted. Believe me, it is challenging. The Operations and Maintenance Committee is the only committee of SolarShare that meets every single week, and our meetings sometimes reach an hour and a half. There's a lot to discuss, and I'm going to illustrate some of the areas in which we have to sort of be pretty creative in finding solutions. In front of you, you're seeing a graph of the annual revenue, and the different colors of bars indicate the contribution to that each group of projects contributes. We have projects directly owned by SolarShare, but they're just labeled SS here in blue. And for reasons related to lenders and security, we have divided the projects into some other groups, other actual corporations that SolarShare owns. Community Solar Assets 1, 2, 4, and 5. You'll see that in 22 we peaked, and we've had worse years in 23 and 24, despite adding two projects in the CSA business group. There are a number of reasons for this. This is obviously not desirable for us. We want to see that graph maintaining a good high level, but there are reasons behind it. Slide. So our revenue entirely depends on solar production and how much of that solar production our equipment can make use of. We are facing some reductions in solar irradiance due to climate change, which is kind of ironic since SolarShare and promoting renewable energy is one of the definite attempts to mitigate that. But we are suffering reduced solar irradiance. I'll explain why. And we are experiencing some extreme weather events causing wind damage to our systems. We also face the situation where we have a number of system components that are surprisingly no longer supported by the manufacturers, despite our having valid warranties in force. These are companies that came in, they were solid companies, we vetted them carefully, they have a good product, but when sort of the heyday of all the project build through the feed-in tariff program, the FIT program as we call it, when that ended, many of them within 4 years just sort of left the Canadian market and left those of us with their products mostly holding the bag. So we've had to find creative ways to deal with that. Also, the projects are getting older. Our first projects are now well over 10 years old, and naturally, breakdowns happen more often, and replacement parts and the scarcity of those parts is a problem as well. We've seen some items where, yes, you can get a replacement, but because they're so scarce, the price has gone up by a factor of 10. It's amazing. Slide. I think everyone is aware of the forest fire smoke, which we're now having our third year of suffering from it. Not too bad, not too many days so far, but it is only June. And when you see skies like this, there isn't as much sun reaching the ground, and therefore our systems don't catch it. We don't know how much of an effect this is having because there isn't a way of measuring it, or at least not a way that we know of. But it is definitely having an effect on the system. What is our solution? Obviously none. There's nothing we can do. Slide. The other problem that we've had is increased intensity of catastrophic storms like thunderstorms with supercells and the microcell bursts that you get with strong ground level winds. These are shots of our Vanastra project last year, where several rows of panels on one corner facing the winds just got torn off despite being weighted down very well and not at a steep angle. We were able to add some additional weight this time. We can't normally do that on roofs or we will overload the roof, but we did this time. Slide. On our smaller systems, we have had panels literally torn right off our trackers. We call them our microfit trackers. They are on Manitoulin Island and toward the Bruce Peninsula. And twice last year, we found panels in the field beside the tracker. No structural damage of the tracker to speak of, and the weakest spot seems to be the clips that hold the panels to them. But this takes time and effort to repair, and we just try to make sure that we learn something from it and can make use of that. Slide. So one of the real difficulties that we face generally is the system components no longer supplied by manufacturers, either because they're obsolete or, for some other reason. So we've got a number of solutions for this. The first is just to maintain a backup stock of key inverter parts. Inverters are what change the DC electricity from panels into AC power with suitable quality and frequency to be put on the grid. We have, in many cases, stocked up on these things for a group of our largest inverters. The board approved an expenditure of, I think, about $120,000 a couple of years back, and it has saved our bacon a couple of times. You don't have to dig very far into that inventory before the dollar value is makes it worthwhile. Our insurance policies fully cover these things, but I think our deductibles are about $15,000 or $20,000. So we might have a claim, but it might not be worth making actually putting it on the policy. Slide. Our second and simple option is simply to keep spare inverters, and we keep one on every site except for the small Sunfield sites. We have two in some cases if we suspect a fairly high probability of more than one failing before we can get replacements from the manufacturers. It's a simple way of doing it, and when the inverters are on site, it means that our contracted maintenance team doesn't have to visit the site, discover an inverter is bad, and then go home and report to us, and then later get a replacement and come in. So 2 service calls and a lost period of generation. They can do the replacement right there on site, and then we can handle the replacement process or the warranty process, on a more comfortable timeline. Slide. One other thing that we have done this year is we've sought out expert repair shops and technology specialists who either do repairs or they create custom solutions for us. We had an excellent example of that this year. Last year, increasingly on 3 Brampton projects, Kiel, Basaltic, and Holtby, the inverters there have a device that detects possible sparking on wires anywhere in the system. They're called arc fault sensors. And these were becoming a nuisance in that they were giving us about 99% false alarms. So, we couldn't ignore them. Those strings, the affected strings that those indications came from were being shut down. And as a routine, we were spending about $500 a week on the service crew going out to at least 2 of the 3 different sites, looking for damage or some sort of problem, and simply turning the strings back on again, only for the same thing to happen the week after with a different set of strings. This was very frustrating. And the manufacturer they're alive and they're doing business in Holland, but they won't take our calls and have no interest in helping us. So we enlisted the help of a friend of the organization, a personal friend of mine, who, after a bunch of research and analysis, came up with a possible solution. We tried 3 variations. One of them worked beautifully. And about 2 months ago, we deployed it across all 3 systems. And not only have we not had any false indications since, but we had one indication that there was a problem. And when we sent the service team out to the site, they found that there was indeed a problem. So these attenuators, as they're called, did let through a valid signal. So it's eliminated a bunch of a demand on Bob's time and an expense, and it made for much more trouble-free dealing with those 3 accounts. Slide. One of the other things we've done is we've worked with a third-party designer in automation to totally rewrite a command program for our trackers on one project in particular that we purchased from another cooperative. We call it the Renfrew project. And what you see here is what Bob Ross jokingly calls the drunken tracker syndrome. And that is that, when the sky is partly cloud covered, you would have these trackers all aiming in a different direction, all thinking that they have the best idea as to where most of the sun is. And they obviously can't all be right. And swinging back and forth and changing their elevation up and down just puts wear and tear on the motors. And the manufacturer, as far as they're concerned, that's our problem. And so we found out about a third-party designer of a better control system. Slide. And this is what we want to see. We want to see them all facing the same way wherever that is, or on a cloudy day straight up, or in a high windstorm. We want to see them all horizontal so that they will not incur wind damage. Slide. We have one big project this year. We knew it was coming. It's well overdue. The very first rooftop project we did in Mississauga, and we call it our Waterview project, was physically an extremely large project on a rooftop. At the time we put it on, the roof surface was not in good condition. We tried to persuade the landlords, as we have done successfully in a number of other projects, to let us give them a contribution toward re-roofing it so that we could put the system on a new roof, thinking that we would get to, 20 years of trouble-free operation out of it. They were not prepared to do that, and we modeled, and it was still very much worth our while to go ahead. But we thought they were going to be doing it between 2019 and 2021. They only just announced this year that they were going to do it. And so we have had to strip off this entire system slide. This is an extremely large system because of the type of panels that were first used here. And there are actually about 2.5 acres of rooftop covered by these panels. We are going to be replacing them with new high efficiency panels, which will not only occupy half the space, but will generate double the power at that. It's been found out that the first generation of the feed-in tariff contracts, which covered this project, it turns out that we are legally allowed to double the size of the panels on the system, which won't boost the maximum power, but it will allow us to reach maximum power for more hours of the day and therefore derive more revenue from it. We're in the midst of the process now. We filed for building applications and so on, and hope to have this operating by the late summer. We wish we could have done it sooner and gotten generation in the peak period, but c'est la vie. Okay, slide. So we have some exciting future opportunities that you're going to hear about tonight. I'm going to leave that to Patrick Colley to review to outline, but we're pretty excited about them because we weren't able to add any new projects last year, but this is now going to open up some great new opportunities for us. I hope you found that informative and not too techy. We're always happy to hear your feedback either way, and that ends my presentation.
Great, thanks so much, Mike. I don't see any questions or comments from Mike. Brian, tell me if I'm missing something, Brian. But like I said, we also have time for questions after we're done the meeting, so that you have more than one chance. So let's move on to our audit committee report with Ashley. Ashley, I think you're online and solve your connectivity issues. Is that true? Maybe not. Well, I may ask Ron to step in then for Ashley if Ashley was having connectivity issues. Unfortunately, so Ashley, jump in if you are able, but otherwise I'll pass it over to Ron. Thanks for doing this, Ron.
Yeah, it looks like she's online without sound. So
oh yeah, okay. Sorry about that, Ashley. Okay, Ron.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm just going to spend a few minutes walking through the results of the audited financial statements. As a reminder for everyone, we're a calendar-based fiscal. So that means the year runs from January 1st to December 31st. So these are the statements that ended December 31st, 2024. On the balance sheet on the assets here, I'll just highlight two quick things. There was a little more cash at the end of the year than in the prior year. And a lot of that is just the timing of when we're selling and redeeming bonds. So nothing magical there. You'll see a large decrease in the line near the bottom, project, land, and equipment. And that's really just the amortization or depreciation of our projects, which you'll see on the income statement in a couple of slides. It was just over $3 million that we amortized. Next slide, Chris. On the liability side, the big components here are as you can imagine, are our shareholder or our community bonds. You'll see in the current liabilities, the community solar bonds was 15 million at the end of the year versus 6 last year. That's really just a mechanism of when the bonds were sold and when they're redeemed. If you look in the long-term debt, you'll see that community solar bonds was 21 this year versus 30 last year. So when you add those two together, the short-term and the long-term, they're not that different. They're slightly lower as we continue. We start to pay off more of the bonds, as well as the first line in the long-term debt, the debt financing. That's financing that we have with certain lenders. As Mike indicated, we've got different vehicles, CSA 1, 2, 4, 5. Some of those have debt with a long-term lender, and so that's being paid down. So we paid about $1 million in that debt over the year. And then in total, there was another, call it 750,000 of liabilities that was paid off during the year. Next slide. And so if we get to our income statement, so you can see our revenues were down, about 65,000 year over year. A lot of that was, you can see there was an insurance settlement. Mike had talked about, we've got insurance policies on all our facilities. So if there is something that happens, we can put a claim in for that. So that accounted for that. But if you look at the top line revenue, for the most part, down 30,000 on 6.7 million. So pretty flat year over year. When you look at the expenses, that amortization, that's the line I mentioned before. So almost 3.2 million in amortization, and our total costs were 7.5. So that results in a loss of 650,000. Again, that's not from a cash flow standpoint. That amortization line is just depreciation. It's not a cash. So when you kind of strip that out, the project's actually generated about 2.5 million in cash for the year. And I think that's it. We can take questions, but we'd like to propose that the financial statements are approved. If you go to the next slide, Chris.
Yeah, the appointment of Queens LaRose.
Yeah, the appointment of Queens LaRose. So they've been our auditor for many years. They're very familiar with us. They do a great job, and the cost is very reasonable. We've gone out to market a couple times over the last few years to get competitive quotes, and they're always the most cost efficient. So, am I making the motion, Chris, or am I asking?
Yeah, if you would, I'll
Yeah.
So if you could make the motion to
So I'll make
reappoint
the
Queens
motion.
LaRose, as it's written out there. And maybe Shama, you could second that if you don't mind. Or maybe, sorry, maybe Shama's having trouble too. Patrick, would you mind doing that for me?
Sure, I'd second that motion.
Great. Any discussion? Don't see any. Okay, so I'm going to launch the motion. And give everyone a few moments to complete that work. And just a couple more moments. Okay, I'll end the poll now. Everyone can see results. So that motion carries. Thank you very much, Ron. I don't see any questions. But again, we'll have a chance at the end of the AGM as well. Okay, thanks very much, Ron. Next, I'm pleased to welcome Doug Finley, the chair of our finance committee here at SolarShare.
Hi, everybody. I'm kind of the segue speaker in that I'm going to touch on things that that Mike and Ron have already talked about, and then I'm going to touch on a few things that Patrick and Peter are going to talk about, but I'm going to try and do them in the context of our long-term model. The long-term model is something that was built by folks like Mike and Ron who started SolarShare, and it's kind of our gospel. It's the key instrument that we use in our planning and looking at how different decisions will affect the long-term health of the organization. Can you go to the first slide, please, Chris? So Mike was talking about some of the things that have happened with our revenues. And if you look at 23, 24, 25, they're both with that 6.9 million line across the top. You know, if we hadn't had the wildfires, if the sun had shone the way, you know, it used to, maybe we'd be up at 7 or 7.1-ish on that line. But it gives you an idea financially of the impact that it has on us. It's survivable, but it's not trivial. We do model that over time, over the next 13 years or so, that revenues will slowly decline as the panels age, which is something that Mike's talked about, and that's just a normal thing that happens with the solar panels. The gray bars on there represent our interest expenses, and again, Ron was talking about those a few minutes ago. Those interest expenses, which are mostly from solar bonds, also from a couple of other sets of long-term debt, those interest expenses are going to start to decline. They're going to start to drop by, 100,000 a year or so, and then it becomes a sort of a virtuous cycle, and the interest will drop further and further as we pay off more and more bonds, which our bonds outstanding will be dropping by, roughly speaking, kind of $2 million a year starting next year. Expenses, the orange bar at the bottom, will remain relatively steady going forward because, again, touching on what Mike said, equipment ages, things break, you have to replace it. So we don't expect to see expenses go down a great deal. Again, this is all information that's been baked into that long-term model. And so it's basically running as we would want it to, notwithstanding that I'd like to see a little bit more on that top line if we could just get a little bit more irradiance on our panels. Next slide, please, Chris. Now I'm overlapping with some of the things that Peter's going to talk about, but we're trying to manage bond sales and maturities to try and, going forward, get rid of a few of these peaks like what we saw this year with extra maturities this year. In fact, if you looked at the same graph from last year, we've got about $2 million fewer of bonds maturing this year and about $2 million more maturing next year. And that's because of, as I say, adjusting our maturities when we do our bond offerings. The reason we want to try and avoid the peaks really is twofold. Number one, it's a lot of work in a given year when you have these big renewal tranches. It also creates risk. What if the markets for some reason just aren't receptive at that point in time? You don't want to have a lot of bonds you've got to renew. And also, it feels like maybe the interest rate environment might be a little bit better next year. So let's try and shift a few more of our bond renewals to next year. We did model in the long-term model for interest rates to climb as they did starting 2 years ago, and they've corresponded roughly to what we put in the model, so it hasn't caused us unexpected shocks. Next slide, please, Chris. So we've got a surplus at the end of the contracts of about $300,000. That's been shaved down a bit last year because of the lower revenues due to the irradiance shortfalls. Again, it's you want to have a positive number out there is that terminal value. Some things that Patrick's going to talk about and that Mike alluded to give us some optimism that that honestly, if some legislation gets passed and some new things come down the pipe from the electricity operator in the province, honestly the life of our projects could be significantly extended, which would be terrific news. Mike talked about the repowering of Waterview. That's in fact the first kind of new investment that we've made, and it shows you how much more efficient solar panels have become. That we could make a good business case for putting new panels on top of Waterview, and we get a payback on that. Now, admittedly, it's a replacement, so a lot of the infrastructure is already there. But you couldn't have done that with panels a few years ago. They just didn't have the same efficiency as they do now. So I think all of this is to say that our premise, the premise for SolarShare that was laid out by the founders and that we've continued to work with, still holds. The revenues continue to come in from the projects. We continue to pay the interest and pay down bond principal, and it's moving as we want it to. And Patrick will talk about some things that may bring new life to the whole enterprise. That's it for me.
Great, thank you very much, Doug. I don't see any questions for you at this time. I do appreciate we've had a couple of questions in the Q&A, which we are responding to. So thank you for those questions. Feel free to ask your questions at any time. And again, we'll be able to do that at the end of the AGM as well. So now what we've done, we've arrived at the elections. We have 3 positions open on the board, and we have 3 nominees who have put themselves forward. I'm going to ask each of these candidates to speak briefly to their candidacy. First, I wanted to say that, to be able to run for the board, you need to be a member of SolarShare. And we call for nominees during our meetings to see if anyone else wants to put themselves forward to run for the board of directors. So I'll ask for that at this time. Okay, I don't see anyone, so that's fine. What I'll do is I'll ask Graysanne to speak for a minute, then Poppy to speak for a minute, and then Ron to speak for a minute. So please go ahead, Graysanne.
Hi, I'm Graysanne Bedell. I've been on the board and some of its committees for several years now. Existing members will have heard me at meetings before. New members, this would be my 3rd term that I'm looking to be elected for, and I do hope to continue to serve the board. As a retired lawyer, I bring a legal perspective to the issues that can arise from time to time in that regard. If you've read the offering statement, as we're all supposed to have, you will know that there's some complexity, and as you've already heard in the various reports, a lot of dishes being spun. So I think it's helpful to have a legal perspective, and I hope I've brought that to the board. Also, I think it's good to have continuing directors. It's great to have new directors for sure, but you like to have the institutional knowledge sort of available there for the next person to deal with. One last thing, I'm also on the board of the Atmospheric Fund and work with a local environmental group in my neighborhood. And I think all those things help make me a better director for SolarShare, but they all inform each other. And being a director of SolarShare has helped me being a better director of other entities as well. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Graysanne. I would like to ask Poppy to say a few words now. I'm just going to Okay, great. Thanks, Brian. Poppy, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Chris. And good evening, everyone. I'm incredibly excited for this opportunity to express my strong interest in joining the SolarShare board. I see immense potential for growth, not just in expanding our solar footprint from the current projects, but also in strengthening our ties with our community and demonstrating a successful member-driven approach to clean energy. I am eager to leverage my environmental education and finance knowledge to help SolarShare expand its reach of 2,000 members. Through strategic planning, enhancing member engagement, and ensuring operational efficiency, I would meaningfully contribute to this board to help end the reliance on non-renewable energy sources in Ontario. I've enjoyed being a member of the marketing committee since 2024, and I truly believe in the power of the SolarShare cooperative to offer tangible financial, social, and environmental returns. And I'm looking forward to more sunny days ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Poppy. It's great. Ron, can I ask you to speak for 1 minute?
Yep. Hi, everyone again. I've been on the SolarShare board for 6 years, so this would be my third term. Joined the same time as Graysanne and Ashley. Prior to that, I actually have a long history with SolarShare. I spent about a dozen years in the renewable energy space with a company called Bullfrog Power. We did a lot of work with SolarShare, but with other cooperatives across Ontario, with other community organizations across the country, Indigenous groups, and help build renewable energy facilities, wind, solar, some biomass. So I've got a tremendous amount of experience in the industry over the past 20 years. When I left Bullfrog, that's when I decided to join SolarShare. So that was about 6 years ago. I'm a CPA, have a CPA background, and have really enjoyed the time on the board and as treasurer, and would look for your vote to continue helping on for the next 3 years. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ron. That's great. So that's all of the speeches that we have. Mike, if I could ask you to help me make a motion to conduct a poll to elect 3 directors to the board of SolarShare from the nominees to hold office for the term of 3 years or until they leave office or a successor is appointed. Could you move that motion for me, Mike?
I so move.
And Peter, would you be able to second that motion?
I do. I second it.
Thank you so much. Any discussion? Okay, I will launch that poll. Please vote for 1, 2, or 3 of the nominees. Give you a few more moments. Great, I'll close the poll now. Wonderful. Thank you, everybody, for your votes, and congratulations to Graysanne, Poppy, and Ron. Okay, so now I'm pleased to welcome up Patrick Colley, the chair of our new business committee, who's going to talk to you about all of the exciting new business opportunities that we're seeing these days.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, I feel like there has been quite a build-up to these slides. I take that laugh as that you can hear me.
I can.
So we've spent a lot of time focused on SolarShare. I wanted to bring things back to where we are in the world, and specifically where we are in Ontario. And so I spend a lot of time looking at graphs like the one on the right. And if you're in the world of energy or listening to the news for the past 2 or 3 years, you'll know all about how data center load and electrification are pushing us to sort of the first growth in electricity demand in maybe a generation. And we're right on the cusp of that upslope in the curve. And luckily, the governments have actually thought about this, and both levels of government are doing something about it. So we have likely another 4 years of investment tax credit support from the federal government. It gives us 30% of our investment back. And then on the provincial side, the IESO is underway with its largest procurement since the end of the FIT contracts that started SolarShare. Depending on how many of these windows get sized at what specific size, the IESO will likely procure between 4 and 8 gigawatts, which is, we typically talk in kilowatts, so metrics nice and easy. That's 4 to 8 million kilowatts of electricity added by 2033. This procurement is probably a little bit too big for us. Mike might touch on some opportunities at the end where we could be a smaller partner in this procurement, but there are even more exciting things that are coming down the pipe in Ontario. So just last week, Ontario announced quietly, I'm not sure if that our premier wants to advertise this or not, but they are moving forward with a program that will allow for large customers to sign virtual PPAs or do what we call virtual net metering, where we or others can install solar or wind offsite on lands that are good for it and gain economies of scale by installing more than just one rooftop at a time, and then sell that power to one or many different corporate buyers, co-op buyers. What's not being done yet is community net metering, but that might follow. So starting July 1st, we can continue to explore some conversations that we have had with co-ops to do something like this, but we were actually just surprised that this announcement last week came with such little fanfare or press release. We had thought it was dead or at least slowly withering on the vine. So that's good news. But we can go to the next slide. Now I'll bring it back to something Doug said earlier, and this is even more exciting than the last two pieces I announced. But as Doug mentioned, we modeled our projects to have a 20-year asset life to match the life of the FIT contracts. We knew, and most people knew, that the panels would last longer. They would still be on the roof at the end of the 20 years, but we just didn't have certainty on revenue when we went about starting this. I was going to say company. Is it a company? Co-op? But now we do. So the ISO has announced the local generation program, which will enable existing, mostly FIT contract holders, as well as some new distributed generation resources, so recontracting and new contracts for 100 kilowatt to 10 megawatt projects, which aligns very well with what we have in our portfolio. It will allow them to recontract at the end of their FIT contracts starting next year. So the program is still being developed by the ISO. It's in the consultation with stakeholders phase, which we plan on participating in. But as it stands, the proposal is that up to 5 years in advance of your contract expiring, you can submit a bid, and the ISO will award the lowest 80% of projects that submit proposals. And what's better is it's not one shot and you're done. It's likely if you miss your bid in year T-5, you can submit in T-4. And if you miss in T-4, you can submit in T-3 and so on. So there's a very, very good chance that we will be able to recontract these assets beyond the 20 years.
I do have one question, Patrick. Actually,
sure.
Thomas asks, what is the potential for our Sunfields projects post-fit? So those are our projects that are what are called microfits. So they're smaller projects.
I think there are some demand response programs for smaller things, but given where those are, there's not much of a load at the locations they're at. They're on rural farmland for the most part. So I'm not sure, to be honest.
I do know that the ISO has mentioned the microfits in their consultation with contract holders like SolarShare. So they're aware of that. It's not clear to me exactly if there will be more opportunities for Sunfields, but some of our colleagues at other cooperatives are interested in aggregating some of those and different things. So we are in conversation with the ISO. And if we would love to see those continue to operate, of course.
Thanks. Are there any more questions before I move to the next slide?
I don't see any. Okay.
So just with all of that good news, we can move to the next slide and maybe tell you what we plan to do about it. So as I mentioned, the biggest opportunity for us here is the local generation program. It's in the midst of stakeholder engagement. So Chris and I will, and others if they want to, or anyone is welcome to join the stakeholder engagement sessions. The ISO puts them on. They engage feedback from industry. And just as an example, in the design of the long-term 2 procurement, the big one, industry was able to mold that contract in quite substantial ways to help get more green energy on the grid and lower prices. Another thing on here, we will re-engage on the virtual net metering front with some of the conversations we already had, as well as push for more community net metering in addition to the large customer net metering, which has been announced. And then, Mike, I wanted to ask if you wanted to talk about, there are some opportunities for us to participate in the larger procurement as a smaller partner, or if you just want to leave it at that.
I think maybe just leave it at that right now, since we don't have sort of any deals in the bag. But thanks for the offer, Patrick.
Great.
Great. Thank you so much, Patrick. I see that Bob has a question about solar panels wear out over time. They do, in fact, wear out over time. We model about 0.6% a year of their output. It decreases by on an annual basis, and there's other discounts depending on how you do it. But yes, they do wear out over time, although albeit slow. And we'll come to some of those questions in a second. I'm going to move on to Peter, and we'll see if we can answer some of those other questions in the chat, or if not live. Let's see, Peter, over to you.
Yes, hi. Well, good evening. Just you can advance to the first slide there, Chris. So what we have here is an overview of the membership base and a look back for the past 5 years on bond sales. So the blue line that you see through there is the membership base, and you'll see that that's been growing year on year. We have, in the order of about 2,200 members right now. We have added 42 in the last offering statement. One thing about the offering statement, it is not calendar year based. It kind of spans typically runs from May to May each year. So we talk about the offering statement on a kind of a blended year basis, but our fiscal year, as Ron mentioned, is a calendar year basis. So what happens here with the gray shaded bars, this is the amount of bonds we've sold year on year. And part of what you see with the pattern there, Doug referred to this. This is largely driven by the maturity dates of blocks of bonds. So you'll see there was, there's high years in the 12 to $13 million range in 2020, and then 2023 was a low year, and 2025 is a large year again. One of the things we've tried to do with bond sales is to modify the terms, make a spectrum of terms available that help us level out the pattern of this, and that helps us on the back end with just the administration of redemptions and renewals for bonds. In total, we've sold about $90 million of bonds over the history of SolarShare, and we've paid about $17 million of interest payments out to members. I think you can move to the next slide, Chris. So again, we've paid about $17 million of interest, over $90 million of bonds sold. In the last offering statement, we've sold $14.5 million. We are right now in a gap between the expiry date of the 2024 offering statement and our next offering statement will be released, we think, by the end of the month. And we should have that receipted by FSRA for the fall. We're anticipating September. And at that point, we'll be communicating what the bond offering is available under that new offering statement. And we think that'll be maybe September timeframe. Next slide. One of the things we've been doing with our marketing effort here is to put on some educational webinars. Here are some that we have put on earlier this year through the winter and early spring. So one of the sessions was a seasonal health webinar dealing with really seasonal affective disorder and how the low daylight hours can affect our response to stress. This was presented by Steph Morgan, who is a trauma-informed wellness educator. And so she took us through some tips and tricks and tools on how to manage stress in the colder winter seasons. In February, just ahead of the Ontario election, we had a webinar by Fatima Saeed. She's a journalist with the Narwhal. She's based in Mississauga, and she took us through a history of the Ontario energy policy. In March, we had an overview of the cooperative organizations. This is by Michelle Christman, and she's an education manager with the Ontario Cooperative Association. That's one of our partner organizations. These webinars are recorded and available to review if you haven't seen them. Brian is, I think, prepared to put a link in the chat so you can go to these webinars and review them if you missed them. And we're collecting up some ideas for future webinars. So some ideas we have are webinars on electric vehicles, community energy, off-grid solar, but we're also looking for suggestions. If you have them, please add them to the chat. Next slide, Chris. These are some of the organizations we work with. I'll just run through these quickly. Propel Impact, they offer cost-effective consulting services staffed by students. and we benefited from some of their work. They did some financial analysis for us, and they also did some research into Indigenous lands on for lands where the SolarShare projects are located. Community Energy Cooperatives Canada, they're an umbrella organization that help promote renewable energy across Canada. We're helping them start the Ontario chapter, and we work with them to share best practices on O&M. We've also been cooperating with them on advocating with the IESO on virtual net metering, which is a topic Patrick mentioned. Tapestry is a Tapestry Community Capital. They're a sister organization to us, and their expertise is in the use of community bonds. And they perform a lot of the critical administration on the management of our bonds. Venture for Canada, they have a grant to pay for students to help SolarShare develop content for our website, our blog, and our social media. Relay Education is another sister organization, and they offer a number of programs on solar training. Much of this is available to electrical trade union members, but they also offer this training to some of our Indigenous partners. Finally, the Ontario Cooperative Association, Michelle was from there, and she offered one of the webinars that we mentioned. But they also operate a cooperative young leaders program for students 13 to 18 years of age to teach them about how cooperatives work. Can move to the next slide, Chris. So we have some upcoming events in mind. There's one scheduled for September 13th. This is in the Kingston area. It's a site visit to our Wintergreen facility. We have a couple of other events in mind. The dates are not set, but we will communicate those as we have details. One is a site visit to our Sundance sites up in Temiskaming. And we also plan to do a member reception somewhere in the GTHA. So as we have details on this, watch the newsletters. We'll be communicating timing of those events. I think that's it for my presentation, Chris.
Great, thanks very much, Peter. We've had a few questions come in over your presentation. I think we've answered all of them.
Okay.
So I think we're
And
good.
do we have suggestions for webinars?
Yes, we did have one about solar panel innovations. I might expand that to maybe solar technical innovations, that because there's a bunch of different stuff, things like bifacial solar panels where you generate power from both the front and the back, maybe new types of chemistries, maybe new batteries, that kind of stuff might be of interest to our members.
Yeah,
so I think that was a great
there's some
suggestion.
interesting things there. There's also combined PV and heat. So try and get the heat off the panel. It cools the panel, and it produces more output. So there's lots of innovations there. That's a good suggestion.
Great suggestion. Awesome. Okay, well, we'll put our thinking hats on. Leslie also asks, how will the old Waterview panels be disposed of? We've recycled the vast majority. We wanted to use them for another purpose, and we almost were able to do that with a partner of ours. But what we ended up doing in the end was recycling basically all of them, and along with a lot of the metal. So that was the best we could do with those panels. As we move into the future, there will be more opportunities for more recycling of all different components of solar panels, as well as the volume of panels increases and the economies of scale get into play. There's certainly going to be a lot more interest in recycling of those panels. Great. Did I miss anything? I don't think so. Like I said, we have more time now to answer questions and answers, or to answer any of your questions. But at this point, I think we're able to terminate the meeting. Oh, Mike, do you want to say something?
Yes, I'd just like to mention that there have been a small number of occasions lately where members have contacted us. I think I've fielded most of the questions where people have had either an issue with installing or maintaining a solar system, or a question about some aspect of what they buy and so on. I don't want to open the floodgates, but we are here to assist in some of those things. So if you do have questions about a system that you're having installed, or you're having problems with the system and you want to find out who can help you and so on, we will try to assist to the best of our ability, on those. So don't be afraid to ask. I guess, Chris, you're probably the easiest target to find, and you can relay them from there. Is that the best way you suggest to proceed?
Yes, of course. All members are always welcome to reach out to me directly, chris@solarbonds.ca at any time.
And by the way, solar systems have never been less expensive than they are right now. So if you've considered putting some on your roof, and your roof is going to last, at least 20 years, I would strongly encourage you to do so. It's a great feeling. It's a great feeling.
Thanks, Mike. With that, we can terminate this meeting. So I'm going to ask Patrick to make a motion to terminate the 2025 SolarShare Annual General Meeting.
I so move.
Graysanne, would you be able to second that motion?
I second it.
Great. I am going to launch that meeting, or that meeting rather, excuse me, that poll. And like I said, we will be here to continue to answer questions. Any questions you might have? Great. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay, so we encourage any other comments, Q&A that you might have. One of the things we're doing, we're going to give each of you an entry into our AGM contest. You can win a gift certificate for your favorite cooperative. And if you've participated in the chat or the Q&A, or you do so now, we'll give you one bonus entry as well, a maximum of one bonus entry. And we'll let you know who the winner is of that gift certificate in our next newsletter. Any questions we didn't get to? Anything that you'd like to ask us? We're all eager to answer your questions. I see we have Gil has their hand up. Go ahead, Gil.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. So Gil Warren calling from London, Canada, not to be confused with London, England. I've been a member of SolarShare for many years. Just a couple of comments. So one is the process here of having these virtual meetings. I used to go to real meetings, but now I'm sitting at my desk. Many organizations after the epidemic have returned to real meetings, but also have a virtual component to the meeting. Some people think that virtual meetings are equal to real meetings. All the data shows that they're not. So I would suggest that SolarShare go back to real meetings with, of course, the option for people to tune in. I live in London. It's a 4 or 5 hour drive to Toronto and back to get to a SolarShare meeting. I've done that a number of times. So please explain to me why we haven't gone back to real meetings, number one question. And then the number two question. I'm an old geezer and I deal with cash in this world and things like checks, and Tapestry is doing our money administration. And if I want to send a check, I now have to pay $50 to have that processed. And there seems to be a concerted effort to put us all on the digital system, which allows for things like screw ups and spying and all kinds of other things. So I would suggest that you encourage both digital banking if people wish, although someday it's all going to blow up, and also that I can still send you a check to pay for $10,000 or $100,000 or whatever. And I note that there are other solar co-ops that still do take checks. So those are my points.
Great. Thanks for your comments, Gil. Appreciate that. So in terms of the AGM, the electronic AGM, you're right. The pandemic did influence us and a lot of other organizations to move electronically. The reason we like electronic AGMs is because, to your point, driving 4 hours back and forth is challenging for a lot of folks. Not that doing the electronic version isn't challenging for some folks either, but we feel that at least this way we can capture more of our membership, which is across Ontario. It also helps facilitate the meeting through polling, etc. That being said, we do love getting together in person. And I think I totally agree with you that there's a lot of value in that. And that's something that we're eager to rekindle at SolarShare and to continue to give our members opportunities to get together and be in a community of people who like solar. So that's the intention behind the event we're planning on holding in the fall, where we can actually get together in person. We don't necessarily need to tie it to the AGM where there's a bunch more process-oriented stuff, and instead we can enjoy each other's company in person. So that's the intention of that. But I really appreciate your comments because I do agree about the importance of getting together in person. The second thing in terms of checks, yes, the second thing the pandemic did was move us away from trying to do physical interactions around money. We found out during the pandemic that, or at least I found out, I wasn't that aware, that we were still receiving checks from a bunch of local distribution companies for the power revenue that we were owed. And that whole process was messed up by the pandemic, and it was very hard to deposit checks, et cetera. So we moved our whole system to try and move away from checks. And the reason that it's because it costs us a lot more money to physically handle a check and physically deposit, do it, all these kinds of things. So I think that's the way that everyone is going. I appreciate, we do still accept checks if you want to do it that way, but we'd rather avoid it because it does add extra cost, and the cost that we charge is to represent the amount of incremental effort that we have to put into that. So that's why we do it that way. Thanks for your questions. Let's see, I'm taking a look for other questions here. Armin asks, there was a mention of new electricity capacity that will be solar and wind due to gas high cost. How does Ontario's plan to develop more nuclear play in? That's a great question. I don't know if any of the board members want to take that on. I can give it a shot.
I tried to answer in the chat.
Oh, did you? Okay, thank you.
It's okay. My thoughts were the nukes don't typically get lumped in with everyone else in the RFPs. The nuclear program has always been government mandates that we need more nukes and just does them without a competitive process, which is probably the only way to get nukes built. So you can be on either side of that comment. I actually, because I live in the world of the competitive procurement side, don't know what the plan is for the nukes. If you do,
that's a good. I think they're directly contracted with the government. So whatever, like those small modular reactors that they're talking about, and I think Bruce and as well as Pickering, I think are all just direct contracts with the government. So we don't have a lot of insight into what that process looks like or how much it'll ultimately cost Ontario ratepayers.
Chris, it's Mike. I think that there's a moral question here. I just feel that it is morally wrong to benefit by a form of energy generation that leaves a highly dangerous and toxic residual for tens of thousands of years, apparently. I just think, why should we benefit that and then hand it on to our kids and say, it's your problem now? I feel it's just immoral.
Thanks, Mike. I'm just looking for David talks about home microfit projects and would be interested to learn more about what options are. That's a great comment, David. I'm sure that we can do that, and we will be interested in informing our members about those options for them as they come out. Emmett suggests identifying social events well in advance to get attendance that can help provide that social connection. Totally agree with that sentiment. Great. Did I miss anything?
Chris, there's a comment I usually make at the end of my presentation, and I totally forgot today. And it is just to urge people, if they haven't done it already, and if it's practical for them to, if your house is being heated by fossil fuels, please investigate switching to a heat pump. And if you drive an internal combustion vehicle, or as we like to call it, infernal combustion vehicle, and you do any real amount of driving per year, please consider an electric vehicle. At least do a test drive in one, and if you don't feel you can afford a new one, check out the used prices. There are excellent deals there to be had, and based on the experience of myself and others, I don't think you'll ever want to go back.
Great comment too. Christian asks, last year we talked about battery projects. Indeed, we did talk about battery projects more recently. That was part of one of the procurements that the ISO, the Independent Electricity System Operator, was putting on, and we were working in partnership with a couple of development organizations to consider putting bids in. We didn't end up putting bids in for a couple of reasons to that procurement. But like Patrick was speaking about, the local generation program, which was just announced, is right in our wheelhouse of the types of policies and regulations that we could really use as a cooperative, and much more suited to us than the larger procurement programs that the ISO has been running. So we're very pleased to see that.
Yeah, the larger procurements require a larger staff, but if you're doing a battery on the large scale, you really have to play in the energy markets. And with our size and scale, we need a different type of contract structure, that we need a fixed capacity payment. We're just not going to compete with the larger shops that have energy trading teams.
Thanks, Patrick. Doug, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, in various of our meetings, Chris, we've talked about whether there are ways coming up where we might be able to kind of leverage the power of our membership. And do you want to put a plug in? I mean, if to the extent that any of our 2,200 members happen to run into any of their local MPPs, what's the one thing we'd want them to say?
Yeah, that's a great point, Doug. Thanks for setting me up on that. So, one of the things that we'd really like to do at SolarShare is be able to sell electricity directly to our members. And so that's called, Patrick alluded to it, it's called community net metering or community virtual net metering, which would allow us to set up projects that generate electricity that aren't necessarily on your home or on your property, but on a different piece of property. And we feed that electricity into the grid, and we can reconcile it on your local distribution company statement. That's something that we are working with other cooperatives to advocate for here in Ontario. And like Patrick mentioned, they just announced this larger virtual net metering program for large customers that is very similar to the kind of thing that we're looking for. So if you're talking to your MPP, I think the thing that I'd say is, in particular, around that more community ownership of energy, just like they do in Europe, is really what we want. We can own that electricity resource together, and we can retain that economic benefit in Canada, and we can also grow the amount of renewable energy we generate in Ontario together. That's what I'd say. Let's see. Thanks, Graysanne. Good points. see, I don't see any other comments. Thanks for everyone's comments. Anyone else that I'm missing? I don't think so. Brian, do you see anyone that I'm missing? Anyone else see any other comments? Gil, did you have something else to say, or?
Yes, one
Oh, great. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't know.
last minute editorial
Sure.
comment.
Please.
I heard Mike's comments about let's get off fossil fuels and switch to heat pumps. I totally agree. But I would caution members this. I live in a co-op here in London. We have 30 units, and our buildings are 25 years old, and they started out with natural gas heating only. We have a member who's put solar panels on the roof of our condominium above his unit, and he's totally gone electric. He has no gas, water heater, or furnace. He has an electric car, and he's done it. The gas has been pulled out. However, Enbridge has a conspiracy going here and a con and some of our members in the co-op have been sucked into this. Take out your old gas furnace, put in the heat pump, but keep a gas furnace as backup for when it's cold. And then Enbridge is still charging you the monthly fee, which is very large, like $20 or $30 per month. And they've got you as a customer still. Okay, they're trying desperately. Even half a customer from their perspective is no customer. So it would be, and while we have the one guy who's done a total electric conversion, we have 4 or 5 other units where they got sucked into this thing after the fact. And yes, they have a heat pump, but they've still connected to the gas. So we could possibly do some education about this process and kick Enbridge out of the business. That's all.
Thanks for that comment. I agree. We actually, a couple of years ago, we did have a webinar about the OEB, the government overturning the Ontario Energy Board's decision
Yes.
and as a result, reduce the price of natural gas in a way that continues to be unfair to electricity. So totally on board with that. There are powerful forces that would like to see the status quo continue, and we're doing our best to develop more clean energy that's community owned for all Ontarians.
And Chris, there is a fight going on. It's being spearheaded by a very good organization in Guelph called Emerge, EMERG. And they have discovered that Enbridge gets contracts gets land lease agreements for the pipes that they have run underground and so on. And in Ontario, they get the use of the property for free. In a number of other provinces, they have to pay for it. Well, why shouldn't they have to pay for the land just like anybody else? Municipalities need the money, and they're getting off, artificially well when they really don't deserve to. So if anybody's interested, just look up Emerge in Guelph, and they are trying to get other municipalities to get on board with having this changed and stopping the free ride that Enbridge is getting in Ontario.
Great, thanks, Mike. Yeah, Andrew points out Enbridge is, I think they're administering the program for green rebates as well. Great, thanks so much, everyone. I don't see any other comments or questions. Thank you so much for your attendance. We really appreciate it. Congratulations again to the newly elected members of the board, and we really appreciate your attention and membership in SolarShare. As always, feel free to reach out to us. You can reach us at invest@solarbonds.ca, or you can call us at our number. I wonder if I have that here. Oh, I forgot that part. No, that's it. You can reach us. You can find our contact information on our website, chris@solarbonds.ca. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Brian, for putting that in there. That's great. We appreciate it. Take care.
Thanks for running the meeting, Chris.
My pleasure. Thanks, everyone.